And welcome back to the Golf Intervention Podcast. My name is Eric Layton. I'm here with my co-host, Rob Fales. We are two golf instructors who have set out on a journey of podcasting to help you, the listener, play better golf. I hope we're doing it. What do you think, Rob Fales?
I hope so. We're professional golf instructors and very much amateur podcasters. So
yeah, but we try hard.
We do. We have a growth mindset about it.
We put the effort in. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing, in the third part of our series on short game, we're going to discuss swing. So we've already discussed strategy for short game. We've discussed skill for short game. If you have not listened to those episodes, I would highly suggest going back and listening to them, although you don't have to. They don't have to be in the order. But this is the way the Golf Intervention looks at things, and it helps keep it clear for the listener and for the student and for the teacher, right? And today, we take on the swing, meaning, I guess, the techniques of the short game.
The macro, yeah.
The macro. And this macro, like we said, swing is everything you can see, essentially.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right? Skill is what you can't see that really makes the shot through the swing. And then you've got strategy, which is your choices that you're making. So that's just kind of how we do it. And we say that from least invasive to most invasive if you're trying to improve. You're going to go strategy, skill, and swing. And I would also contend that for those seekers of knowledge, which if you are sitting down listening to a podcast about golf techniques, you listener, are a seeker of knowledge, that you have to be a little bit careful about what you hear and see in the social media worlds about these techniques. Yeah. And so today, what we're going to try to do is just give you simple insight into the short game swings to help guide you towards improved short game the very next time that you play, hopefully, if you need it. So are you fired up about this, Rob?
Fired up. A little under the weather, but we're pushing through. We're here. The show must go on, right?
Truth be told, 5 minutes ago, we didn't know if we were going to be on. And Rob's like, nope, we're going. I'm excited about it. And we want to get it out there for the listener. And actually, I've been looking forward to this episode a lot because I think that we steer away from swing a lot because, well, we should. There's a lot in swing that is very unique to a person and very hard to communicate the great things about. So you start getting a lot of preference involved, a lot of people like swing models, and then you're talking about copying people and all this stuff. Positions of the swing, using those P system numbers that everybody loves so much. Point being, in short game, though, I feel like you can kind of coalesce golfer to golfer around some techniques that most everybody can do. Whereas the full swing techniques are always going to look and should look, and probably being most effective, having uniqueness to them, to the individual, because of anatomy and other things, right? Just the way the body's put together and all that. But in the short game, it can kind of be a little more similar, right? And talking about those techniques today, I think will be very, very fun. So I think we'll still go through the lens of level 1 golfer, level 2 golfer, level 3 golfer, and what's important about that. We've covered these topics in the past. I don't want to say that we haven't. We're now on episode 58 or 9, somewhere around this, maybe 59. And so that's okay. We're covering them again. We're covering a little bit different angle.
Yeah, our teaching evolves over time, right? So like the same episode a year ago, we're not going to be saying the exact same stuff anyway, nor should we, right?
As the great philosopher Rob Fales once said, you never step in the same river twice.
Wait, did I say?
And when you, I think so. At least you.
At one point, I probably said that, yeah.
It was probably Confucius, but I'm going to say use it. Point being, because of how we teach and how we learn and what we believe, the teaching framework evolves. It just does. And so the more you learn, we're in the age of information, and the more you learn, the more it evolves. I don't think my short game instructional technique preferences have changed much over the years, but understanding of ball flight around short game probably has, because we're using technology we didn't use 25 years ago when I was learning to play and teach the game. So it has changed in that sense, how we communicate it, words that we use. And today we're going to try to get into that and try to demystify maybe a little bit about the short game, because there is a lot of discussion about it. And there's some camps in the short game, and we're not really going to address that. We're going to just tell you what we think is relevant, and hopefully you'll be able to take away the points that'll help you play better in the short area this year. So, Rob Fales, unless there's anything you want to add here at the beginning, we should get into level 1 golfer. So what are we thinking about level 1, level 0 to 1 golfer? I'm beginning. I've never played. To have played and have the skill of maybe shooting around bogey golf. That's a big range of golfers, but there's some commonalities there, like we've said in the skill set, which you've heard in our other episodes. So let's talk about level 1 golfer in the short game area, 40 yards and in, but off the green.
So I think it'd be helpful to maybe start with what are the elements of swing that are not specific to an individual golfer or an individual level of golfer. So when we talk about swing and coloring in the earlier comment about micro versus macro, the swing is, like Eric said, the stuff that you can see. So I can tell it's who it is from 300 yards away based off of their swing. But I can't tell where the ball hit the face. I can't tell where the face was pointed. I can't tell how fast the club was moving, right? So all those 3 skills, like we said in our last episode, skill is what creates the ball flight and what the ball does, right? The swing, and you've said this before, Eric, and I really like this, is more the vehicle through which you can develop skill. And so when we look at for the long game, right, the priorities of swing are, number 1, to keep yourself safe, to not injure yourself. Number 2, to be consistent from a, specifically not from a geometry standpoint. And we talk about geometry is really the positions of the club in space or the body in space. Where's the club in this position? If you took a freeze frame of different points in the swing, oftentimes people can color in the geometry as they're looking at those different positions, right? Whereas what we typically look at is the energy and time elements of swing. And those and how they're organized, really the consistency of them allows us to develop skill long term. And then for long game, there's an efficiency element to this in terms of like, hey, how much bang for your buck are you getting? In short game, it's less about creating speed with maximal effort or work. It's more about predicting a specific speed, right? And so for a level 1, level 2, level 3 golfer, that's the lens that I'm looking at through when we're talking about swing. Short game motions are typically pretty low levels of force, so it's very rare that we're looking at injury stuff for short game. So for short game, we can pretty much throw that out. We're looking mainly at, hey, what is the consistency of the rhythm, the freedom and the tempo pieces, which we're going to talk about in this episode for sure. And then what is their overall strategy for managing speed? And I think the skill of speed and swing, they intertwine probably the most of the 3 skills because it has to do with how you're creating energy, right? And how you're managing time within that swing. So laying out the priorities, I think first would be a good place to start for sure.
Yeah. And I think that, again, when you reference some of the knowledge that people are seeking in the short game or just in golf in general, the discussion around rhythm mainly is what you're discussing. There is no discussion. I mean, effectively isn't no discussion around it. And we sit here and say, I think it's the main driver of repeatability and contact.
Yep.
I mean, we could really mess the geometry up and have that be a problem or get the tension wrong. There's things that we can do, right? We'll talk about that a little bit. But the consistency of strike is going to be so much bent towards the rhythm that we can produce, right? And that's, it's amazing. Again, I think that the discussion never centers around that on the online discussions, but again, because you can see it, but it's not the interesting pieces of what you can see. We're looking at freeze frame positions again, right? And so
the masses of golfers aren't trained or not aware to be looking at that. Even though I do think when people go to PGA Tour and LPGA Tour events, they often come back and say, man, like they hit the ball so far, but it doesn't look like they're working as hard as they possibly. Like a lot of people make that observation, but for some reason it just gets tossed aside. Like, why is it that our solution to that is always technique from a positional geometric standpoint, it doesn't make sense to me.
No. I was thinking about my lessons this week, and I'm going to guess at least 5 lessons with putting and short game. We talked a lot about rhythm. We're really working on it. Sometimes we use tour tempo. A lot of times we don't. We're just trying to find that, maybe a word or a count that helps people kind of.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just to latch on to the feel about it. So
let's get into some of these definitions. All right. So we've given you the priority list, number 1 of what's important in swing. Now let's talk about from an energy, time, and geometry standpoint. We've touched on geometry for sure, but really talking about energy and time. Really, the 3 main words that I use in my coaching a lot are going to be rhythm and tempo, and then freedom. Right? There's 3 words that get thrown around a lot when it comes to golf swing that I think, like the masses of golf instruction probably doesn't have great definitions for. So I'll take a swing at it. So the rhythm is more the pattern. Right? So if we were to just talk about the club time, right? So how much time is the club traveling in the backswing direction relative to the entire downswing and follow through direction? Rhythm would be like the ratio of time, right? So is the backswing taking 3 syllables and the entire downswing and follow through taking 1? While that would be a rhythm that I don't prefer, what we prioritize is the consistency of it, which we'll get into when we talk about freedom here in a minute. But I see so many golfers, they are describing rhythm, but they are saying the word tempo, and it drives me nuts. Like, I'm working on my tempo. I saw a reel today where a guy was like swinging a rope and said, working on my tempo. I'm like, no, like you're working on the rhythm, right? Because the rhythm is, again, the general pattern. If you were to picture like an orange whip or like a lag shot or clubs like that, if you were to swing that club back and forth and have like a very symmetrical kind of smooth wave in the shaft, that would be a different rhythm than if you went back like slow motion and then ripped it hard in transition and had this huge bending in the club, right? So again, a lot of like when people say, it's smooth. Well, you're not talking about tempo there. You're talking about rhythm. It's the ratio of time. And I actually talk about rhythm a lot when it comes to physiologically, like when we walk. There's a rhythm to how my feet strike the ground, my legs push, and my rib cage changes shape, right? So understanding that, hey, you can drive your swing not from steering it with the arms, but from using more of a ground up into kind of the rib cage strategy for creating energy, and you can create a rhythm to that, right? So again, pattern, rhythm equals pattern. Just kind of like nail that into your brain. Right? Tempo is more the amount of time. Right. So I can have, and again, I prefer like the time of the backswing to be relatively similar to the time of the entire downswing and follow through. That's definitely a rhythm that I prefer because, again, we'll talk about the implications on is it swinging freely or not. And it has to do with that. But you could have a very consistent rhythm with a 1-syllable backswing, right? So time it takes to say swing, and the entire downswing and follow through saying swing. Right, that can be very, very consistent. Now that's a very like much lower amount of time, so people might call that a quicker or like a faster tempo. It's not. It's just less time. Right, it has very little to do with club head speed, meaning like there's no necessary like correlation aside from when you get too much time. Like you get up to 4 syllables, 5 syllables, then it gets very difficult to create the club head speed that you need to be able to play. But there's no like, hey, 3 syllables is more club head speed than 2 syllables, or 2 syllables is more club head speed than 1 syllable. That's not necessarily the case because there's a length and a range of motion of swing that we're talking about there as well. So tempo would be the difference between a 3-syllable swing, right? Virginia. So the entire backswing, Virginia, entire downswing and follow through, Virginia, versus like a 1-syllable, like swing, right? Then finally we have freedom, which is really the level of tension in the overall system itself. So basically is the club's momentum stretching the body and moving the body, or are your muscles driving the movement of the club from start to finish? And I certainly teach and prefer more like, hey, you get the club going in that first little bit, right? And then you more allow the momentum of the club to move you back and forth for the most part. Again, that's maybe a little esoteric in terms of the verbiage there, but you're allowing the momentum of the club to swing your arms, to stretch your rib cage, and then you're allowing the momentum of the club to swing and rotate freely into the golf ball and into your finish. So there's one part of the swing that is, hey, I'm applying force, and then there's another part of the swing, most of the swing is momentum. And I think golfers and coaches, honestly, that gets lost a lot in translation. So those are kind of the main definitions: rhythm, tempo, and freedom that I typically use on a day-to-day basis. And we'll get more into that, but just wanted to set some definitions for the listener.
Yeah. And those they do apply to the short game as well. So when you talk about rhythm and tempo, if you're 2 syllables all the way to the top of the backswing for a driver, and that's your rhythm, right? You're
That's your
2 syllables, 2 syllables.
Oh yeah,
right?
matching, yeah.
Okay. And then I'm hitting a 40-yard pitch shot where I'm taking it hip high with a sand wedge, and it's also 2 syllables and 2 syllables. So you can visualize the difference in tempo it would take to create the same pattern of rhythm, right? So like that's the way I visualize it. And there was a great video. I remember Jerry Hogg sharing us this video, I believe, unless I'm making this up in my mind at this, of a split screen of Jack Nicklaus hitting a bunch of shots. And they were like drivers and wedges, and they were all on a VHS tape split together, and he was starting and stopping the swings basically all at the same time. So that was like this great visualization of all that, right? And that applies to putting too. So as we get into the short game, when we focus on those things, it's because they matter a lot.
Yeah.
And the foundation of playing good golf, if you go back and listen to some of our earlier episodes, and I know we'll kind of harp on this again. We're wrapping up this series and we'll get into some new episodes, but really laying the foundation of having a mindset of an ability to accept the outcome and manage the expectations and be enjoying the game is going to allow for some of this to happen, right? It's going to be really the foundation of allowing a lot of this to happen. And when we get wrapped up in technique, this is the problem. I've seen it for 25 years teaching golf now, especially in the short game. They get so wrapped up in what they believe. This is their intention, like what I believe I'm supposed to do and what I'm trying to do from a mechanical standpoint, that they just lose track of all the other stuff, and the tension builds up and they lose the feeling of what you're just talking about, which is feeling the club swing in their hand and creating a good pattern or rhythm and having freedom. And it all goes away, even for extremely good players at times.
It ebbs and flows.
Maybe even worse for extremely good players at times, where it just disappears and they're unable to hit those shots, right? And so when we harp on short game from a technique standpoint, from our vantage point, it's like we're coaches, man, and we coach everybody that plays this game, from very beginner to adult to tour player to high-level college golfer, and we're on that journey helping them, coaching them along, right? And this is the things that we see. It is not meant to be a catchy 30-second video of a beautiful little chipping stroke or something. This is not that. And so these are the things that can really foundationally set you up for a great short game, but it starts right in your mind.
No doubt.
I think it really, really does. And so as we go into level 1 golfer, a lot of these golfers don't have technique yet. They don't even think about technique. I tell the story a lot about me playing the first round of golf I ever played. I was a high school kid who played baseball, so I could hit the ball, and I got 40 yards from the green, and I'm standing in front of this green, and I'm going like, I have no earthly idea how to hit it short. Never even thought about it, because all I ever did was went to the driving range. And so you start there with like, do I just take a slow swing? What do I do to get all the way back? I have no technique, right? And then I'm developing that technique through level 1. Using some things that really help us make some good contact, right? Because we talked about the skill.
For sure.
And so talk about the driver of that level 1 short game technique.
Yeah. So back to our skill episode last week, level 1 golfers, especially in the short game, it's all about managing the arc location, right? And so how can we build in, and we always say swing can help give you more margin for error. It can help bias the skills differently, but it does not create the shot. Meaning, and to your point about golfers getting in deep, dark rabbit holes, I think it's born from the idea that the swing geometry and the technique is what creates the shot outcome. And it's not the case. All right, it's the skill, but oftentimes we can certainly help the skills in terms of the margin of error of them by biasing them in certain ways with the swing technique. So a perfect one we're going to look at is how can I build in some margin for error on arc height? That's one for level 1 golfers. Oftentimes, bomb swings way too high, bomb swings way too low. How can I build in some margin for error with that? And the big one that I typically look at, again, aside from just literally training the arc height skill, is where is the bottom of the swing from a toward the target versus away from the target standpoint? All right, so that's going to be number one. And then also, what's the delivered loft? All right, because it's very rare for a level 1 golfer. They're going to need a ton of loft for the shot just to get the ball on the green. So when I'm organizing their grip, and again, like I'm a big stickler on getting the grip such that it's not going to bias the club face massively, massively open. I do not want the leading edge way up off the ground for level 1 golfers in general, unless if I can help it. So a big influence to that is the grip. All right, so I try to get the grip in the hands such that it's a neutral club face bias. If it's a little bit on the close side, I don't really mind it. It's okay for a level 1 golfer, 100%. And really harping on the relationship between the pressure in the grip versus the tension levels in the shoulders and the arms. Golfers confuse how tightly they're squeezing it with the level of tension in their jaw, their neck, their arms, right? And the whole system in general. So someone out there said, hold it like a baby bird. And they probably had really strong hands, right? And or they were talking about grip pressure when really they were trying to interpret freedom from a tension standpoint. So my big thing is like, hey, if I went in there and grabbed a golfer's golf club, try to pull it out of their hands, I want to be able to easily move the club in their arms, but I do not want the club moving in the hands. All right. So it's that kind of that combination of pressure relative to tension, and then just making sure the club face isn't massively twisted open or isn't anywhere, even slightly on the open bias. I think for level 1 golfers, oftentimes it's a very similar grip to their long game. Now they can grip down, they can stand closer to it, all that good stuff, depending on what the golfer needs. But in general, the grip is going to be very similar in terms of what I teach for level 1 golfers. In general, just because like for many level 1 golfers, if I can keep stuff the same for them and not having to change it a ton, then I'm probably going to hedge to that end of the spectrum for sure.
Yeah. And I would say also building upon that is from a ball position standpoint, I try to get them, especially at level 1, just to play it in the middle of their stance.
100%
right?
agree. Yeah.
With their feet closer together. I
Yes.
think one of the biggest no-nos in short game is playing the ball too far back in your stance. And I'll die on the hill of this one, right? Which is it just sets you up. In theory, you would think you'd just catch the ball cleaner that way on the arc, but the problem is it really changes a lot of the geometry from a shoulder standpoint, how your weight is shifting, where the club wants to be taken on the backswing. Puts the leading edge into a tricky position. I'm trying not to get too technical, but let's just play these shots out of the middle of our stance. Whether we're trying to play it high, whether we're trying to play it medium,
change the club.
whether we're trying to play it low, we're going to change the club for that, change the swing a little bit, but at the end of the day, let's keep it really simple. Our feet are pretty close together, going to be inside of hip width, right? Ball's going to be middle of the stance. And most of the time, I would say, all the time, we're leaning some level
so I was going to ask, a little bit of
pressure
left lean
under our foot onto our lead side, right? So for a right-handed golfer, lead side is left. Left-handed golfer, lead side is right. So we're leaning. No, it's not 60%. Who knows what it is?
Well, it's not.
We can give people feels, but I mean, it's they're not measuring it anyway.
It's a mass thing. It's not pressure, right? And that's one of my big things is like for short game technique, when we're building in some rhythm and tempo to this that can create energy and therefore then momentum and freedom. If I don't have the pressure changing in my feet at least a little bit, then it becomes very difficult to create rhythm not only from a club standpoint, but it's hard to drive the rib cage with any sort of rhythm. And then when I don't have rhythm in my ribs, then I'm going to have trouble getting energy out to the golf club. And then if I'm not getting energy out into the golf club, then the only way I really have to move it is to steer it with my arms. And as soon as I get into steering it with my arms, tension levels increase, and then the overall repeatability of the rhythm and the tempo pieces do come down, right? So
let's talk about that for a second, because I think you and I are saying the same thing. If you play the ball too far back in your stance and try to lean left, push my pressure left, ball is back in my stance, my upper body mass, right, which is what you just said, drops back.
It's tipped away.
Here's the problem. We want the mass set forward so we can actually use the pressure under our feet to create the movement.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that what you just said?
Yeah. I need the mass neutral-ish enough. And it can be a little bit left to bias the bottom of the arc on the target side of the ball.
Correct.
But I need to understand there's a difference in where my body is in space from a leaning right or left movement standpoint versus the pressure change in my feet. If I were to just step in place, you can feel pressure changing in your feet from your right foot to your left foot. That should happen in shots where it's greater than a putt. In putting, I don't have much of a pressure shift. You can say like, hey, if I'm going to hit a 9-iron or an 8-iron and essentially make a putting swing with those clubs from off the green, you don't have to have a pressure shift for those really either, because it's the same swing as what you would do with a putter. But as soon as I need to create some momentum, I need the club head to swing up at least kind of level with the handle, if not the club head going slightly above the handle in the backswing. That's when I need some amount of pressure changing in my feet. I need the rib cage changing shape. We need the arms and the club swinging freely.
Yeah, so you're rotating your body.
Yeah.
At that point, you're moving. So outside of, which we've said many times, if you're a level 1 golfer, you're putting as often as you can putt.
Yes.
You're going to do the putting technique with flatter face clubs, like up to a 9 or 8 iron, as often as you can. Maybe so. It depends on your set, but 7 iron, maybe even a hybrid putting technique. I will also shout out the Ping chipper.
Nice.
So if you're someone that does not carry a ton of clubs, it makes no sense not to have a Ping chipper. I don't know if you've used these with your students. You got your Ping hat on there.
I
Rob
do.
Bales.
I have the bunker club, but I've played around a little bit with the chipper. It's cool.
Here's what I would say about the chipper. It's built like a putter. So for the folks that cannot, in their mind, stop using their wrist too much and kind of like, I'm trying to use non-technical terms. They flick their wrists a lot, right? They do a lot of that trying to lift the ball off the ground move. And no matter what they try to do, they can't stop it. It's a subconscious thing a lot of times, right? You put the chipper in their hand and it feels like their putter. It's very heavy, actually, very heavy. They'll get the steel shafted one. Don't go with these sissy graphite ones. And I'm going to tell you right now.
Is that the label on the shaft? Does it say
100
sissy graphite? That's actually the name of it, right?
Don't go sissy graphite. I'm talking about heavy, because the weight actually keeps them, it gives them momentum.
Yeah.
To your point, right now I have momentum in the club, and they many times stop they can actually chip it. And I think because it just looks like a putter.
Yeah.
It's
and the line
like
and everything's kind of like, so it gets it probably more up in the palm and everything.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so they stop doing the thing.
Yeah,
so it's
cool.
pretty cool. But point being, now when we have to hit the ball higher, or as we're building our skill set to be able to play a more diverse toolbox of shots, now we got to do the shots that Robbie was just describing there, which is like, I've got to feel some movement.
Yeah.
Like I've got to, and I can't feel the movement if I'm standing over the ball expecting it's going to be terrible, worried everybody's judging me, hoping nobody's watching me, squeezing the club like I'm trying to get wine out of the end of it, squeezing a grape to try to get wine out of the end of the, right? Yeah. And having the ball back in my stand, like all these things just lend to this choppy looking.
Yeah, agreed.
And we just can't do it like that. It's got to be a little mini swing. And to your point, we got to set it up mindset first, then get it in the grip the right way, get your body set and start to feel a little bit of emotion that helps you really control the ball, right?
Totally. And what gives us the most predictability and consistency of the golf swing is not being the most in control of the golf swing. All right. So I do this demonstration where I hold the club with 2 fingers and I just allow the the club to swing back and forth, just holding it with two fingers. And I'll get golfers to ask, hey, what's more consistent, right? This or, and then I'll grab it and I'll try to create the same rhythm in the club with my hand, but invariably I can't do it. It never looks the same under tension as it feels when I'm free. And it's like, okay, well, what's more consistent? And it's obviously the one that's free. It's like, okay, well, which one's more in control? Obviously the one where I'm grabbing it, right? So it's like control. It's not really what we're after when it comes to swing. It's consistency, it's predictability. It's not steering it and being in control of it the whole time.
Right. So we've gone through in the other episodes the strategy piece, you know, what we're trying to accomplish with these shots and all the choices that we're trying to make. And I made the point that I think short game has the most strategy of any of the pieces of the golf course, because we're changing trajectories and landing points and how much we wanted to spin or roll out, that kind of thing. And then the skill part we defined well. And so the swing part is like, now we've gotten to this place and can I just produce it?
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. This is the vessel of production. You can be skillful with a lot of different things. Okay. You can learn to do things. So don't get caught up in the minutia of, oh, it has to be a shallow arc depth or a steep arc depth, or even that there's some right and wrong answers in there, I will say, but your interpretation of what that means as a golfer is really hard to figure out sometimes. Sure. And so I would say don't stress out about that, not under the supervision of a very good coach.
Yep.
Just try to do what we're saying. Mindset, get a good grip, take a good stance, find some rhythm, swing freely.
And train skill.
Get the low point forward, and that's skill, right?
Yep.
And then go from there, right? Have a good mindset, have a good strategy, and go forward. So anything else on level 1, Rob?
I don't think so. No,
I don't think so either. We basically described the general putt chip, which they're going to try to do most of the time, putt or putt chip. And then a little bit of a swing, which you can chip with or you can pitch with, right? And just to define that a little bit clearer, chipping is a low shot and pitching is a high shot. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, you don't have to overthink it. And when you're looking at those shots, a lot of times the club you're using is dictating that trajectory.
And it's confusing because a pitching wedge, especially nowadays, is like rarely.
You're not probably pitching with a pitching wedge. Yeah, but you need a chipper.
Yes,
and it gets a lot more clear at that point. So moving on, like now, as we know from our previous episodes, our requirements from level 1 to level 2 move from, hey, can I just start trying to get the ball on the green almost all the time and not have any big blunders, to now I have to start hitting some proximities, right? Because there's like, I'm hitting more greens in regulation, and the greens I miss in regulation, I really need to be having extremely high percentage of the time on the green, and also hitting it inside certain distances and more often, right? So I can give myself a chance to get it up and down a percentage of the time, right? So in that requirement, I'm going to have to start really controlling things like trajectory, spin, and where the ball is landing on the green with some prediction of how it's going to roll out. The skill set gets bigger, right? So the requirement of the swing isn't that different than what we just talked about. It's just the development of the skill through that vessel, right, Rob?
Correct. Yeah, 100%. No, like Dr. Bob Grover's research is very clear. Like when you go from amateur golfers to teaching pros, and then from teaching pros to playing pros, the variability of the amount of swing time, which is the tempo, the variability in the rhythm, which would be the ratio of time, just gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, right? So you're not going to hear us say really anything different as far as that goes. The swing is very similar to how you walk, right? You've got pressure shift in the feet, you've got a change of shape in the rib cage, and then you've got your arms in the club swinging freely. It's just less. And I think like that's an important thing to understand, is that when I was talking earlier about, I'm going off a little bit off topic here, but it's okay. When I talked about like, hey, there's part of the swing where you're creating force into the club, and then there's part of the swing where essentially the momentum of the club's pulling you. Well, a lot of that, like the club pulling you, is due to the amount of force you were able to apply into that golf club in the first part of the swing. And you might hear companies like, I think back in the day it was like Blast, I believe, talking a lot about, and like it's in the Dr. Bob Grover research for sure. It's talking about how there's a difference in rhythm from short game to long game when we talk about the amount of time in the backswing relative to the amount of time to the ball, right? So in long game, it's basically three-ish to 1. It's not exactly 3 to 1, but it's 3-ish to 1, 2.5 to 3.5 to 1 in terms of the amount of time in the backswing relative to the amount of time to the ball. Then you have in short game, it's more of like a 2 to 1, right? So what creates that difference? A lot of that is just due to how much the club's momentum is pulling you into the backswing. Because as the club pulls you and the momentum is kind of swinging your arms and pulling you up into the backswing, well, guess what you're actually doing? You're applying force in the downswing direction as the club is still moving back. And that's a lot of what amplifies the momentum of the club swinging into impact is all of that time in the backswing that was spent actually slowing the backswing down via putting force in the other direction, in the downswing direction. It's not something that's intentional. It's due to swinging freely and creating enough energy in the club in that first part of the backswing. And in short game, you're just not creating as much energy in the club in the backswing. Therefore, the club doesn't actually stretch you and swing you and move you. There's just less momentum. Therefore, it's going to have more of that pendulum-like, very symmetrical like size of backswing relative to size of follow through. Whereas because in long game, because you have all that amplification and momentum, you're going to see the finish is going to be relatively a little bit bigger than the size of the backswing. And so I want
this is something that is, I think, a little bit in that short game tiff that goes on between some of the top instructors. But Joe Mayo points out very clearly that the body mass is moving forward during the backswing
toward the target,
and he's right about that, right? And you can see it. And you watch the best chippers in the world and pitchers in the world, Tiger Woods being clearly one of them, and you can 100% see it. That's something you can see. Okay, you can see that. That's why we call it swing stuff. So it happens, right? This is what you're describing is happening. And so this ability to move with that energy and in that rhythm requires that
movement. The pressure change.
And it's, and as I've thought about this episode for a couple of weeks now, coming up on it, it just keeps going back to mindset for me.
Yeah.
And it's what I see all day long. It's like you go out and play with members and I don't care. They're either very confident in their short game, either they're good at it or they're not good at it, or it can be kind of a disaster in a lot of ways, and like I said, the better the player is, sometimes the worse this can be, where it's just, they don't chip often because they hit a lot of greens. And when they have to hit these short shots, it's just not a mindset of expecting a good outcome. Right? They're not in that place. Right. And so that level of freedom starts in the mind, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's radical acceptance of, and it's self-given permission to perform freely and to play freely without a guarantee, right? So what confidence is not certainty about the future, right? You're actually, yeah, exactly. So I completely agree with you. Like when I see tension ramp up, when I see lack of pressure change in the feet, lack of relative motion in the rib cage, and they're just like steering it with the arms, they're just trying to make sure, they're just trying to guarantee, they're just trying to avoid the worst case scenarios, which is my buddy judging me, like, what does this mean for my score? People will blow the consequences out of proportion for shots like that. And yeah, like to your point, like so much of what can free people up and get them into that rhythm and tempo consistency that we talk about is the front loaded acceptance stuff and bringing a growth mindset to it.
And so as we talk about moving into level 2,
thank you.
Which we've already done, but I'm just saying that you said you went off on a tangent, but I think it was exactly appropriate because now we're starting to see in level 2 more of a swing. Like you have to, in level 1, it's more of a stroke. It's more of that like I'm just defaulting to this stroke, which is a very one-levered putting action, right? For me to get into level 2 and 3 and elite status, like I've got to learn to swing the club.
Yeah.
Right? Call it pitching, call it low driving chip shot, whatever. Like I've got to start creating this movement that looks more of a swing. I'm using my wrists more. The forearms are coming into play. My body rotation and pressure shifting and all these things, my posture, all this stuff plays a role at this point. And we have to be able to manage that. And so as we go into level 2, is there something, like I know for me, I try to delineate with my students when I'm teaching them. I'm like, this is a pitch shot, or at this level, this is a pitch shot. This is a chip shot. I want them to visualize it because I want them to be able to verbalize what they're trying to do. It has to have a picture attached to it for me, right? I'm trying to get them to get an external focus on what they're trying to create with the shot.
For sure, yeah.
Right?
I think it's in level 2 where you start needing that higher than stock shot, right? Because for a lot of these golfers, once you get to the mid to level 2, into level 2, right, you're trying to get the ball inside 12 feet as opposed to just getting it on the green. And like the putt, the chip are going to be default lower options, which can be great if the pin's middle or if the pin's back. But again, you're not really caring about where the pin is anyway. For level 1 golfers, it's almost like, hey, we're going to do what we do. Most of the time, the pin's going to be middle or back and we'll be in good shape. Some of the time, the pin's going to be front, and that's just poor luck. Whereas for level 2 golfers, I'm trying to access front, middle, and back pins, like against essentially short-sided shots where I've got ample room on the green, and then shots where the pin's all the way in the back. So the high shot does come into play, and that's where having an open face option in terms of how you're doing that, there's a lot of different options. I can preset the face open at address. I can change my grip slightly. I can spin the face open going back. I can obviously play different clubs, but that's a little bit more of an entry level 2 option. I think it's like middle to end of level 2, kind of what I'm talking more about here, where we start to get a little bit more one-dimensional in the club that we're using. And because of that, as I start to have more of an open face, what does that do to the leading edge? Does it move it up or does it move it down? Moves it up, which means I need something for a lot of these shots. Either I've got to manage the arc height really well and just choose that scenario when the lie accounts for it, but I need something to get the bottom of the swing ahead of the golf ball that doesn't involve closing the face to path and leaning the handle forward that way. And so to your point, Eric, and not to repeat ourselves here, but this is where in the backswing, that slight bit of mass movement towards the target becomes very beneficial, because now you're allowing yourself to make impact with a more loft, more spin loft, right? While still getting that arc height margin for error based off of having the handle a little bit leaning forward, a little bit leaning toward the target. And this is, again, I'm not setting it and holding anything with tension in my wrists and my forearms. This thing is swinging freely with momentum. It's more of a movement in the backswing where, again, your upper body, basically the top of your head, is going to just slightly tip toward the target. But so much of that, again, Eric, is due to that walking rhythm with the feet being close together and not having as much of a energy away from the target in the first part of the backswing. Because in long game, you're still moving toward the target. It just happens later. It doesn't happen as early. Well, why is that? Because I've spent a considerable more amount of work to get the club swinging and moving away from the target. So I have the away from the target movement, right? That momentum's going to kick me up. And then I'm going to have that left, not left, but toward the target movement that happens after I've gotten this thing going back. Whereas in short game, it's the same rhythm. It's just less. I'm not giving as much energy going back. Therefore, when I create that same walking rhythm with my feet and my ribs, you're going to see that movement toward the target be a bit more exaggerated and a bit more obvious in a short game. I don't know how intentional it really needs to be, other than just training really good rhythm in the kind of like a walking like rhythm, like I've said a couple times before, in terms of the pressure changing the feet, the stance width being pretty narrow, that relative motion in the rib cage. All of that stuff is going to kind of help kick you toward the target without it being super intentional. And this is stuff for a level 2 golfer. we don't expect you to take this information and go out and necessarily like try to put this into play. What we're outlining here is some concepts and really some motivation to go see a very high quality coach, highly qualified coach to help you with your short game with some of this stuff.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to go on record with preferences, but I think the general point that we try to make is that low point being forward of the ball is just, it's paramount, right? Managing the arc height is paramount.
Yes.
The attack angle is gonna be down pretty good because the low point is forward. That's part of the story. And so that's just, and I would say that I never teach anyone to try to open the face on the backswing of a short game shot. Never. I don't know if you do.
It's just an option. I've had a small handful of people have success with it. It's definitely not my stock.
I'm talking preference.
Yes. Yeah.
Preference, short game preference. I don't do that. Put it to you that way. I don't personally do that. So
yeah, I prefer just to preset the face open at setup.
Seems way easier to do that. So let's go that route.
Especially for level 2.
Let's go the route of way easier. I will say that I don't like thin margins for error with my students because they're so tense all the time anyway. Mm-hmm. I need a lot of margin for error. And if the lope of I would say now there's going to be dysfunction in this, so you can overdo it. But if the low point is pretty significantly forward, it's going to build in some margin for error for you. If the handle leads forward and the low point is forward, and you can reasonably manage arc height, which most of us can't because that's being done by setup
and the freedom and the rhythm, consistency, and how you're swinging.
Correct. Yeah. But I'm saying that's what gets compromised, right? If there's something that under the gun gets compromised, it's going to be that. Yeah. And so I'm trying to build in as much margin as I can.
No doubt.
And if you don't have the margin because you're not moving that low, if the low point isn't far enough forward, you're bringing in hellacious misses. And that's just what drives more and more tension, in my opinion, more and more discomfort and more distrust.
Yeah, depending on the mindset that they're bringing to that error. Yeah, I would say like, especially for folks who are bringing more of like a fixed mindset to these short game shots, absolutely. Like you're going to see these outcomes that have a trickle down effect on their psychology. It's more the way that they're perceiving the outcomes, not the outcomes themselves, but it's like their explanatory style.
Correct.
It's how they're explaining the outcomes. But yeah, I would agree.
But the point I would make, again, kind of dying on this hill. Yep. If the technique I provide for them or that they try to do leaves them very little margin between a good and bad shot, and maybe even so infinitesimal that they can't really sense their input to it changing and getting vastly different results, then their self-talk is never going to be all that positive, right? And so we've got to be able to coach them up well. Coach them up, get a good lesson. If you're struggling with a short game, find a good coach. If you don't know one, reach out to us and we will try to set you up with people that we know. We've done that for people before, and I mean it when I say that. DM our Instagram account, send us a message on Substack. People have emailed me. Do you know a coach in this, that area? We've set them up. So we believe in coaching, obviously. We haven't said that much on this show recently, but we believe in it. I would say that we've covered so much of the basis for a lot of this stuff because you look at level 3 and you go, well, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of what we just talked about, done a lot sharper with a lot higher skill, right? Then to your point, coalescing probably around a certain club and shot that we play a lot, right?
Totally. And I would say like the arc height variability now for level 3 and 4 golfers is getting quite a bit tighter, which opens up options for where the bomb swing can be. Plenty of level 3 golfers, plenty of level 4 golfers are going to be able to, maybe not my preference, but able to play shots with the bottom of the arc very close to the golf ball for specific situations, specific lies, specific slopes, like especially to hit higher. They're going to be able to manage the height of the swing arc such that they can get the bottom of the arc at, or just like a kind of around the golf ball and totally be able to manage that. And so they do have more options. But again, so much of it is because the energy and time management consistency just continues to get better. The arc location skill just gets so much tighter when the swing rhythm, tempo, and freedom are well organized and consistent, for sure. So it gives them a lot more options as far as that goes. They're trying to get everything inside of 6 feet, basically. So they're going to have quite a few options around the green. Like I've seen elite players have like slightly different grips. They'll change up their distance from the ball quite a bit, especially to hit higher, they'll get further from it. To hit lower, they'll get closer to it, stand the handle up. They will definitely modify setup variables to get the golf ball kind of doing what they need to do. And they'll manage ball. They'll change ball position a little bit too. They'll move it up. They'll move it back a little bit. There's definitely more variability in what they can do because of that swing stuff being so consistent.
And they'll adapt to the conditions, right?
Yeah, that's the strategy. Yeah.
If you watch, and I know this is a strategy piece, but it does play into the swing itself because you could actually hear them talk about this, like, oh, we're chipping on grainy Bermuda this week, or, we're on Zoysia this week, or the rough at the U.S. Open is this super long, thick, whatever, or, it's Bermuda rough, and they're always adapting, like, this is the way I'm going to play this shot this week, right? So they're adapting a lot of times to the conditions, and then they're swinging at it differently, right? Which leads to that different skill, but it's like they're making adaptations in, like you were saying, where they lean the handle, where the ball position is, like even like shape of swing.
Totally.
A lot.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I see tempo changes too, depending like
tempo changes.
If it gets like kind of buried, I see them go less time, oftentimes, and then if it's like sitting up, deep fluffy stuff in the rough, I've seen them go way more time. And that swing gets much bigger in certain situations to hit it really high sometimes. So again, the variability in the tempo does go up, but the rhythm and freedom is more consistent from shot to shot, for sure.
It's a shame we don't get to see Jordan Spieth playing in the, where he's like feature groups much as he used to be, because I felt like that was a guy that could do things with a wedge that just were just out of the world. His adaptability and just the things that he can hit, from different situations were just so cool. Yeah. I think Jordan will get it back. Sidebar. I think Jordan's going to bring it back. He's still very young. So anyway, so that kind of takes us to the short game technique. I think that in summation, I think Rob Fales did a very good job talking through the importance of the swing, the concepts of the swing, like defining the pieces of it that matter outside of just pretty positions or theories. This isn't theories. This is just the science of it. And this is what we've seen over teaching for a combined probably now, I don't know, what are we, 35 years or more combined? A lot of golf lessons, a lot of high level golfers. And so think about those things, the tension that you're feeling. Are you in a good mindset before you hit the shot? Are you picking the right shot to play, which I know goes back to our other episodes, but like just putting yourself in a position to your point, bend the favorability in your favor. Yeah. And if your short game is just razor edge towards, like, it could be good, it could be a disaster, then your technique isn't right, in my opinion. I'm sorry, but you need to make an adjustment there. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And you can practice it all day, and you get yourself onto the first hole, and you've got to go over the corner of a bunker into the Bermuda green, with everybody watching you and $2 on the line. Are you going to be able to produce that shot every time or most of the time to your acceptable outcome? And if the answer is deep down you cannot, then you probably need to adjust your technique. And that's the stuff we're talking about today, right? Could be skill training, could be that too. But sometimes the technique is just, the intention of the technique just isn't quite right. And so take a lesson and work on it. That's what I say. All right, Rob Fales, anything else you want to add to the discussion tonight?
I don't think so.
This was like your Jordan flu game. Robbie is not feeling good. I'm just going to tell you right now. And he medicated.
Yes.
And here Heavily. We are. So I want to shout out a couple of people. You'll like this story, Rob, just real quick. At the end of the episode, I want to say thank you to the listeners. We do this just for the good of the game. It's kind of what we've always done it for. It's just a hobby for us. But I love hearing from people. And I heard a story from a member who flagged me down with the member guest and said, hey, I was playing golf in DC and I saw these people practicing and they were just awful. And I walked over to them and said, you all need to listen to this podcast because you just need help. He's like, they had bad rhythm. They were so tense. They didn't know what they were doing in their practice. And so I want to thank him, because I want to thank you, the listener. If you share us with people, that's just really cool for us.
Yeah.
So, we don't do it to be the biggest podcast in the world or anything, but if you share it and just, sharing this time with us, we really do appreciate that. There's no question about
100%.
it. So thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you next time on the Golf Intervention Podcast with a new episode, exciting new episode. We'll have to decide what it's going to be, but by this time next week,
we'll know what that exciting new episode is.
It'll be awesome. Yeah, it'll be so cool. But no, again, thank you for tuning in. Can't thank you enough. Have a great week. Play some great golf.